We're going to be taking a look at the information on pages Access 84 and 85, in which we're going to review report sections. After watching this video, you should be able to navigate through report sections and pages, resize the width of the report, and work with error indicators. Report sections determine where and how often controls in that section print in the final report. For example, controls in the report header section print only once at the beginning of the report, but controls in the detail section prints once for every record the report displays. Table D2 at the bottom of page Access 84 describes report sections. And if we would take a look at that table, it would tell us that the report header, as we've seen in our opening paragraph, would print once at the top of the first page. The page header will print at the top of every single page, but below the report header on the first page. The group header prints before every group of records. The detail prints once for every record. And then, of course, we kind of start going in the reverse now, where we talk about the group footer will print after every group of records. The page footer prints at the bottom of every page, and the report footer prints at the end of the report. Now, on step 1 on page Access 84, it tells us that we want to right-click the Tours by State tab. Then, we want to click on Print Preview. Then it tells us we want to scroll up and click on the light blue bar at the top of the report. And of course it tells us if you need to zoom in to display the first page of the report. So you may need to zoom in or zoom out as need be. And it tells us on here the first page shows 4 sections. And of course the first section on here, this is our report header, where it says Tours by State. That's our report header. Then of course we have on here, we have our page header, which is going to print at the top of every single page. That's where it's our state name, tour start date, the tour number, tour name, and so forth, which we added in our last video. Then we also have our state abbreviation header, where we have our California, Colorado, District of Columbia, and then we have our detail, and that's all of our individual records that we have here. Then, in step 2, it tells us that we want to click on the Next Page button on the navigation bar, and that's going to move us to the second page of the report. Now, if the second page of the report does not contain data, it means that the report may be too wide to fit on a single sheet of paper, and you would need to fix that problem in Report Design View. Step 3 tells us that we now want to go back and right-click the Tours by State tab again, and then we want to go to Design View. Now in Design View we see that we have our different report sections divided out for us. We see that here's our report header, our page header, our state abbreviation header, our detail, page footer, and report footer. And then it tells us that we want to scroll to the far right by using the bottom horizontal scroll bar, which that is down here at the bottom. We scroll all the way over to the right as far as we can. And then it tells us that we want to use our resizing handle pointer to drag the right edge of the report as far as we can to the left on there. So if we go here and if we position our mouse pointer right on the edge here, and this is right now on the 10.5 mark on the horizontal ruler, and it tells us that we want to use this to drag the right edge of this report as far as we can to the left. So there's not much we really can drag it to the left because we do have this little text box down here as well. But you do want to close it in just a little bit more to get it within the 10.5 inch mark. Now in Report Design View, you can work with the report sections to make modifications to the report that you cannot make in other views, such as narrowing the width. Report Design View does not display any data. For your report to fit in on one page in landscape orientation, you need to move all of the controls within the 10.5 inch mark on the horizontal ruler, and that's where we were kind of working with that and making that a little bit narrower on there as well. And of course, using the default 1/4 inch left and right margins. You will need to practice fixing this problem by moving all controls within the 10-inch mark on the ruler to make sure that they all fit in on the landscape printout. So right now we're about 1/2 inch too much over, so we're going to have to try to get everything in within this 10-inch mark. And to do that, we're going to take a look on step 4. Of course, a few quick tips before we move in on step 4. It tells us that we have a quick tip. It tells us that if your report is too wide, you will see a green error indicator in the upper left corner of the report. Now, pointing to the error icon displays an error message about the error. So you might want to take a look at that, and it kind of looks like a little exclamation mark with a yellow background to it if it's too wide. And of course, if you run into any problems, you need to be sure that the right edge of the page calculation is within the 10-inch mark on the ruler. So that's what we're going to be shooting for. So in step 4, it tells us that we need to use our mouse pointer, and we're going to be dragging the page calculation about 1/2 inch to the left on there. And of course, our page calculation is down here on the bottom. So we need to first select it, and then we need to click on the edge, and we need to drag this over till it's within the 10-inch mark. So we want to use this line right here as a reference point to say it has to be within that 10-inch mark. And of course, to review your modifications, you can always show the report in Print Preview. And of course, if there's anything else that's outside of the 10-inch mark, such as maybe the category here, we might could drag that in as well and potentially resize that. So those are a few little things that you need to take a look at. And since our category is outside of the 10-inch mark, or at least for me it is, yours may or may not be within that 10-inch mark, but if it isn't, go ahead and resize that, so or move that around so it's within the 10-inch mark. And once we have that, like I said, use that line. Oops, let me undo that there. Once we get that within the 10-inch mark, we can then use this to drag this back over so it goes and it clears right in at the 10-inch mark. Once we have that completed, we can then right-click on the Tours by State tab, and then we can click on Print Preview. Once we have that, we can click on the next page on there, and we can examine the next page or the last page of this report on there. And of course, we now notice that that is the last page, and all of our information is now fitting in on 2 pages. Now, of course, it may have fit on 2 pages before, depending on how you had it resized and how you had it looking on there. But if yours didn't fit on there and it had that blank page on there, that's something to kind of take a look at on there as well. So you do want to make sure that your information does fit in on 2 pages, and that you do fit your information in specifically in on 2 pages, and so that it fits in within that 10-inch mark. Now, of course, you can also use the view buttons in the lower right hand corner as well, because we haven't used these before, but we also have the report view. We have the print preview, which we were currently in. Here's our layout view again, and then of course we have our design view, which we were currently in, making sure that everything's within our 10-inch mark on there as well. And that concludes the information that's on pages Access 84 and 85, and in our next video we're going to be applying group and sort orders.